Commander Zexthral stood on the bridge of his warship and smiled. His pale blue skin glowed under the bright lights as he watched the screens showing human ships burning in space. The humans were running away again, just like they always did. His ship, the Void Piercer, was the biggest and strongest in the Dominion fleet. Nothing could stand against it. The war had started 6 months ago when the Dominion found the humans spreading to new planets. The Dominion ruled most of the galaxy. They were strong and smart. Every species they met either joined them or got destroyed. The humans would be no different. Zexthral had read all the reports about humans before the war started. They were weak and slow. Their ships were made of simple metal. Their weapons shot pieces of metal instead of energy beams. They barely knew how to travel between stars. The Dominion had plasma cannons that could melt through anything. They had shields that could stop any attack. Fighting humans should be easy, and it was easy at first. Zexthral had won every battle. He destroyed human colonies on 3 different planets. He captured their ships and took their people as prisoners. The humans fought hard, but hard fighting meant nothing when you had better weapons. Today was another easy victory. The human ships had tried to protect a space station near a planet called Proxima. Zexthral had brought 50 ships to fight. Their 20. The battle lasted only 2 hours. Now the human captain was calling on the radio to surrender. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet," the voice said through the ship's speakers. "My ship is badly damaged. My crew is hurt. I surrender my ship and ask for mercy for my people." Zexthral pressed a button to answer. "Human Captain, this is Commander Zexthral of the Dominion. You fought better than most, but you still lost. Prepare to be boarded. Your people will become workers for the Dominion." "I understand, Commander. We will not resist. But please, help my wounded crew members. They need medical care." Zexthral turned off the radio without answering. Why should he care about wounded humans? They were just another defeated enemy. His soldiers would take what they needed from the human ships and leave the rest to die in space. Sub-Commander Velnara, his second-in-command, stood next to him. She was also blue-skinned like all Dominion people, but younger and less experienced. "Commander, should we send medical teams to help their wounded?" "No," Zexthral said firmly. "We are warriors, not doctors. The humans chose to fight us. Now they must live with the results." "But sir, our own rules of war say we should help prisoners who are hurt." Zexthral looked at her with cold eyes. "Our rules apply to worthy enemies. These humans are barely more than animals. They use primitive weapons and old ships. They deserve no respect." The young officer looked uncomfortable, but said nothing more. Zexthral had fought in 12 wars against different species. He knew what he was doing. The humans were just like all the others. Once they realized they could not win, they would give up completely. Admiral Kethavar called from the home planet that evening. His face appeared on the main screen, looking pleased. "Commander Zexthral, excellent work. You have taken 3 human colonies in just 2 months. The High Command is very impressed." "Thank you, Admiral. The humans fight with spirit, but they have no real strength. Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours." "What about their numbers?" "Intelligence reports say they have millions of ships spread across dozens of worlds." Zexthral laughed. "Numbers mean nothing, Admiral. 1 Dominion ship can destroy 10 human ships. We have better weapons, better shields, better everything. This war will be over soon." "Good. The High Command wants you to prepare for the final attack. We are sending you 200 more ships. You will attack their home world, the planet they call Earth. Once we control Earth, all the other human worlds will surrender." "It will be my honor, Admiral. How long should I plan for this battle?" 1 week at most, maybe less. The humans have no real defenses around Earth. It should fall quickly. After the call ended, Zexthral walked through his ship. In the prisoner holding area, he saw 50 human captives sitting quietly in metal cages. They looked scared, but not broken. Some of them were hurt from the battle, but they still held their heads up with pride. One prisoner, a young woman with brown hair, looked directly at him as he passed. "Commander," she said in broken Dominion language. "My name is Carol Peters. I was an engineer on the ship you destroyed. I want to thank you for not killing us all. Many commanders would have." Zek's thrall stopped walking. No prisoner had ever thanked him before. Usually they begged for mercy or shouted angry words. "You thank me for making you a slave? I thank you for letting us live. Even as prisoners, we still have hope. Dead people have no hope." "Hope for what?" "Your people are losing this war. Soon all humans will serve the Dominion." Carol Peters smiled sadly. "Maybe you are right. But I still hope that someday, your people and my people can be friends instead of enemies. War brings only pain, to everyone." Sexthrall walked away quickly. The human's words made him feel strange and uncomfortable. Enemies should not talk about friendship. They should be angry or afraid, not grateful and hopeful. Back on the bridge, he looked at the star maps showing human territory. Soon he would lead the largest Dominion fleet ever assembled to attack Earth. It would be his greatest victory. The humans had no ship strong enough to stop him. Their planet would fall in days, maybe hours. He thought about all the battles he had won, all the species he had conquered. The Velkari had fought with honor but died bravely. The Zinktal had used clever tricks but still lost. The Morden had surrendered without fighting at all. Each victory had brought him fame and higher rank in the Dominion military. This victory over the humans would make him the most famous commander in Dominion history. Songs would be written about his battles. Young officers would study his tactics. His name would be remembered forever. Zexthrall activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is your commander. Prepare for hyperspace jump to the Sol system. We go to destroy the human homeworld and end this war, for the glory of the Dominion." Hundreds of voices answered back, "For the glory of the Dominion." As his massive fleet jumped through space toward Earth, Zexthrall felt the familiar excitement of coming battle. The humans had fought better than expected, but they were still just another weak species standing in the way of Dominion expansion. In a few days, they would be history. He had no idea how wrong he was. Commander Zexthrall stared at the battle reports with growing confusion. 3 months had passed since his fleet arrived at Earth. 3 months of what should have been an easy victory. Instead, he was retreating from the Sol system for the third time. His mighty fleet of 300 ships had been reduced to barely 100. The humans had somehow learned to build better weapons. When his ships first attacked Earth, the human defenders had simple metal projectile guns that barely scratched Dominion shields. Now they were firing plasma beams almost as powerful as Dominion weapons. Their ships moved faster and hit harder than before. But that was not what troubled Zexthrall the most. Something else was happening in this war. Something he had never seen before in 12 previous campaigns. Last week, during the Battle of Jupiter's Moons, something impossible had occurred. A human soldier had somehow gotten onto his flagship, not to plant bombs or steal information, but to deliver a message. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster had walked right onto his bridge while the battle raged outside. She moved past his guards like they were not even there. His security systems had not detected her. She was not wearing any special equipment or stealth device. She simply walked up to his command chair and placed a small metal box on his control panel. "What is this?" Zexthrall had demanded, pointing his weapon at her. "A translator and a message from our command," Amy Foster had said calmly. "We know your medical bay was damaged in yesterday's fight. Our doctors want to help treat your wounded soldiers." Zexthrall had been too shocked to speak. An enemy soldier was standing on his bridge offering to help his people. It made no sense. "Why would you help us? We are trying to destroy your planet." Amy Foster had looked directly into his eyes. "Because your soldiers are hurt and we can help them. That is reason enough." Then she had simply walked away. His guards had tried to stop her, but she moved through them like water. By the time he ordered his men to capture her, she was gone. The security cameras showed no record of her ever being there. Only the translator box proved it had really happened. The message inside the box was from General Rick Taylor, the human military commander. But instead of threats or demands for surrender, It contained detailed technical information, star charts showing safe hyperspace routes, engineering specifications for better plasma conduits, medical procedures for treating radiation sickness common in space battles. Why are they giving us this information? Sub-Commander Velnara had asked. Zexthral had no answer. In 12 wars, no enemy had ever shared their secrets with him. They fought to win or fought to die, but they never tried to help their enemies fight better. More confusing reports kept coming in. The humans had captured 200 Dominion soldiers during various battles. According to prisoner exchange protocols, Zexthral should have received a list of demands or ransom requests. Instead, he received medical reports. Commander Lisa Grant, who ran the human prisoner facilities, sent detailed health updates on every captured Dominion soldier. She described their medical treatment, their living conditions, and their emotional state. Some prisoners had been wounded in battle, and human doctors had performed surgery to save their lives. Others were homesick, so the humans had arranged video calls with their families on Dominion worlds. They are asking our prisoners about our culture, Velnara reported after reading the latest message. They want to learn our language, our customs, our history. Commander Grant says she is fascinated by Dominion poetry and art. They are gathering intelligence, Zexthral said, but even he did not believe it. Intelligence gathering did not require teaching prisoners to paint pictures or helping them celebrate their religious holidays. The strangest report came from Captain Bill Rogers, a human pilot who had been shot down over Europa. Dominion forces had captured him, but during transport to the prison facility, their ship had suffered engine failure. Captain Rogers had volunteered to help repair the damage, working alongside Dominion engineers for 18 hours straight to prevent the ship from crashing. He saved the lives of his captors, the Dominion transport commander had reported. When I asked him why, he said that good people do not deserve to die just because they wear different uniforms. Zexthral found himself reading and rereading these reports. In every war he had fought, captured enemies either tried to escape, gathered information for future attacks, or simply waited for rescue. They did not repair their captors' ships or ask about their families' health. Even more disturbing were the desertion reports. Dominion soldiers were abandoning their posts and refusing to fight. Not because they were cowardly, but because they were confused. During the Battle of Mars orbital stations, a human medical ship had broadcast a distress signal. 50 Dominion crew members had volunteered to help rescue the human doctors and patients. When their commanding officers ordered them to attack the medical ship instead, half the crew had resigned their commissions. I cannot fire on people who are trying to heal the sick, one soldier had written in his resignation letter. If this makes me a traitor, then I accept that judgment. General Taylor had started broadcasting messages on all Dominion military frequencies, not propaganda or threats, but educational programs. He shared information about human culture, history, and philosophy. He talked about human art, music, and literature. Sometimes he just told stories about his childhood or his family. I grew up on a farm, Taylor had said in one broadcast. My father taught me that the most important thing in life is to help others when they need help, even if those others are different from you, even if they do not like you. Helping others is what makes us more than just animals fighting over territory. Zexthral had ordered his communications officers to block these broadcasts, but his crew kept finding ways to listen to them. Velnara had been caught listening to human music during her off-duty hours. When confronted, she had said the songs were beautiful and made her think about her home planet in ways she never had before. The war was becoming something Zexthral did not understand. His enemies were not acting like enemies. They fought when attacked, but they also tried to minimize casualties on both sides. They treated prisoners better than many Dominion worlds treated their own citizens. They shared their knowledge and resources with people who were trying to kill them. During the most recent battle near Saturn's rings, a Dominion destroyer had suffered critical damage to its life support systems. The ship was dying, and its crew of 400 would suffocate within hours. 3 human ships had immediately broken off from their attack formation to provide emergency assistance. Captain Dan Mitchell had docked his ship directly to the damaged. Destroyer, sharing his life support systems and allowing Dominion engineers to make repairs. For 6 hours, human and Dominion crews had worked side by side to save lives. When the repairs were complete, both sides had simply returned to their battle positions and resumed shooting at each other. "It does not make sense," Zexthral told Admiral Kethvar during their weekly communication. "They save our people one day and fight us the next day. What kind of warriors are these?" "They are confused and weak," the Admiral replied. "Use their compassion against them. Target their medical ships and rescue vessels. Force them to choose between helping others and protecting themselves." But Zexthral found he could not give those orders. Something had changed in him during these 3 months of strange warfare. The humans were not weak. They were something else entirely, something he had no words for. They fought not because they hated their enemies, but because they loved their friends. They showed mercy not because they were soft, but because they were strong enough to choose kindness over cruelty. As he prepared for another battle, Zexthral realized he was no longer certain who the real enemy was in this war. 1 year had passed since the war began, but Commander Zexthral no longer recognized it as war. He stood in his ship's engineering bay watching something that should have been impossible. Human engineer Pete Collins was working side by side with Dominion technicians to repair battle damage to both fleets. The temporary ceasefire had been called for humanitarian reasons, but somehow it had turned into a joint repair operation. "Hand me that plasma coupling," Pete said to tech specialist Morville, a young Dominion engineer. They were both covered in grease and coolant fluid, working to fix a damaged power relay. "This coupling will not fit your ship's systems," Morville replied, studying the human vessel's interior. "Your technology is different from ours." "That's okay. I can modify it to work. My grandfather always said that any tool can be the right tool if you're creative enough." Zexthral watched as Pete showed Morville how to adapt Dominion technology for human ships. The two engineers were laughing together as they worked, sharing stories about their families and their home worlds. It was hard to remember that just yesterday they had been shooting at each other. The ceasefire had started because of Dr. Helen Brooks. She was a human medical officer who had somehow learned about a plague outbreak on the Dominion colony world of Veltar Prime. Without telling anyone, she had taken a small medical ship and traveled alone to the planet. She had worked for 3 months treating the sick, asking for nothing in return. When Admiral Kethvar learned about her presence on Veltar Prime, he ordered her arrest as a spy. But the colonial governor refused to capture her. She had saved over 10,000 lives, including his own daughter. The people of Veltar Prime considered her a hero. She could have used biological weapons to make the plague worse, the governor had reported to Kethvar. Instead, she brought medicine and stayed to help us when her own people needed her back home. This is not the action of a spy or saboteur. Dr. Brooks had been offered safe passage back to human space, but she had refused to leave until every patient recovered. She had trained local doctors in new medical techniques and left behind equipment and supplies that would help prevent future outbreaks. Zexthral had read her medical reports. They were detailed and professional, but also filled with personal notes about her patients. She had learned their names, their families, their dreams and fears. She had treated them not as enemy aliens, but as people who needed help. The ceasefire had been arranged to allow Dr. Brooks to return safely to human space. But once the shooting stopped, other things began to happen. Captain Ben Parker of the human exploration vessel New Horizon had started sharing star charts with Dominion scouts. He marked dangerous areas like radiation storms and black hole gravity wells. He also marked planets rich in resources that both species could use. "Why do you give us this information?" Zexthral had asked during one of their meetings. "Space is dangerous enough without us making it more dangerous for each other," Ben Parker had replied. "Besides, there's a small cluster of worlds in the Kepler sector where a primitive species is just learning to grow food. Both our peoples should avoid that area and let them develop in peace." Ben Parker had shown him pictures of the primitive aliens. They looked like large insects with 4 arms, but they had built cities and were beginning to understand mathematics. Their art was beautiful, even if they were still thousands of years behind humans and Dominion in technology. "They deserve a chance to grow and learn without interference," Ben Parker had said. Every species should have that chance. The most confusing development had been the human entertainment broadcasts. Someone in the human fleet had started transmitting their movies, music, and books to Dominion ships. Admiral Kethvar had ordered these transmissions blocked, but crew members kept finding ways to receive them. Zexthral found himself watching human movies late at night in his private quarters. The stories were strange and wonderful. They told of individuals who sacrificed everything for others, of communities that came together during disasters, of enemies who became friends through understanding and forgiveness. One movie showed a human soldier who refused to kill enemy prisoners, even when ordered to do so by his superiors. Another told the story of a teacher who spent her life helping children from different backgrounds learn to respect each other. The music was equally powerful, with songs about love, hope, and the dream of peace between different peoples. Sub-Commander Velnara had become completely fascinated by human culture. She had learned to speak English and had started corresponding with human officers about philosophy and art. Her quarters were filled with human books and recordings of human music. "They see beauty in everything," she told Zexthral one evening. "Even in sadness and loss, they find ways to create something meaningful. Listen to this song about a soldier who died in battle. It is heartbreaking, but also somehow hopeful." The song was called Going Home, and was sung by a human woman with a voice like liquid silver. It told the story of a young man who died far from his family, but whose sacrifice allowed others to live. The melody was sad but also triumphant, as if death itself could not destroy the love between people. Zexthral found himself thinking about the human prisoners he had taken during the early battles. Carol Peters, the engineer who had thanked him for not killing her crew. Where was she now? Was she still alive? Had she ever made it home to her family? The strangest event occurred when a massive asteroid was discovered heading toward the Kepler system. It would destroy both human and Dominion colonies in the area. The impact would kill millions of people on both sides. Colonel Steve Martinez had volunteered to lead a joint mission to deflect the asteroid. He brought together human and Dominion engineers, physicists, and pilots to work on the problem. For 2 weeks, they worked around the clock to calculate the precise explosions needed to change the asteroid's course. When it came time to execute the plan, Colonel Martinez made a decision that shocked everyone. The deflection would work, but it required someone to manually guide the explosives from close range. It was a suicide mission. "I'll do it," he had announced. "But first we need to make sure the asteroid misses the Dominion colonies. They have more people in the impact zone than we do." "Colonel," his own officers had protested, "our people should be the priority." "No," Martinez had replied firmly. "Children are children regardless of what species they belong to. We save as many as we can, starting with the ones in the most danger." The mission succeeded. The asteroid missed both the human and Dominion colonies. Colonel Martinez died in the explosion, but his sacrifice saved 12 million lives. 6 million human, 6 million Dominion. At the memorial service, both human and Dominion officers spoke about his courage. General Rick Taylor had said, "Steve Martinez showed us what it means to be truly human. Not human as opposed to alien, but human in the best sense of the word. He saw people in need and helped them, even when those people were supposed to be his enemies." Zexthral had attended the memorial. He had listened to the speeches and watched, as human and Dominion soldiers stood together to honor a man who had died for all of them. For the first time in his life, he had felt ashamed of his actions as a warrior. That night he had sent a message to Admiral Kethvar. "Sir, I request permission to begin formal peace negotiations with the human leadership. This war has gone on too long and too many good people have died on both sides." "Absolutely not," Kethvar had replied. "The Dominion does not negotiate with inferior species. You will continue fighting until they surrender unconditionally." But Zexthral could no longer see the humans as inferior. They were different from the Dominion, but different did not mean lesser. If anything, they seemed to understand things about life and relationships that his own people had forgotten. He looked around his ship at the mixed crews of humans and Dominion working together. They were not just repairing damage anymore. They were sharing knowledge, creating new technologies and building friendships that cross species lines. The war was still officially happening, but in practice, it had become something else entirely. It had become a learning experience, a chance for two very different peoples to discover what they could accomplish together. Zexthrall realized that the humans had been trying to teach the galaxy something important from the very beginning. They had been showing everyone that strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to build, to heal, and to forgive. He was finally beginning to understand, but he feared it might be too late. The war ended on a Tuesday morning when Admiral Kethvar was arrested by his own officers. He had ordered the bombardment of a human hospital ship carrying wounded soldiers from both sides. Half of his fleet had refused the order. The other half had pointed their weapons at his flagship and demanded his surrender. Commander Zexthrall received the news while sitting in his private quarters, staring at a holographic display showing the faces of the dead. Human faces and Dominion faces mixed together, all of them young, all of them gone forever because of decisions he had made. 3 days later, he found himself on Haven Point, a neutral space station where the peace talks would be held. Across the table sat General Susan Mitchell, the new human military commander. She was older than most of the human officers he had met, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. "Commander Zexthrall," she said as they began their first meeting. "I want to start by giving you something." She placed a large metal tablet on the table between them. It was covered with names carved in small, precise letters, thousands and thousands of names. "These are the names of every Dominion soldier who died in this war," General Mitchell explained. "We kept records of all of them, their names, their ranks, their home worlds. We thought their families should know they were honored even by their enemies." Zexthrall stared at the memorial tablet. His own people had not kept such detailed records of their fallen. They recorded numbers and statistics, but not names. The humans had treated Dominion dead with more respect than the Dominion had shown their own soldiers. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Because they were people," General Mitchell replied. "They had families who loved them. They had dreams and hopes just like our soldiers did. Death is terrible enough without forgetting the names of those who die." She handed him a datapad containing files on every fallen Dominion soldier. Personal information, gathered from prisoners and recovered records, photos of their families, letters they had written home, stories about their lives before the war. "We also have this," General Mitchell continued, placing another tablet on the table. This one was much larger and heavier. "The names of our own, dead. 12 billion people across 47 worlds, entire families, whole generations, children who never got to grow up." Zexthrall felt something break inside his chest. 12 billion. The number was too big to understand, but each name on the tablet represented a person who had lived and laughed and loved before his ships had taken their lives away. "I am sorry," he whispered, the words feeling completely inadequate. "I know you are," General Mitchell said gently. "That's why we can make peace. Sorry people can change, proud people cannot." The peace negotiations lasted 2 weeks, but they were unlike any surrender ceremony Zexthrall had ever attended. The humans did not demand territory or payment for damages. They did not ask for Dominion technology or resources. They did not even ask for the arrest of war criminals. Instead, President Mary Campbell of the United Earth Federation offered the Dominion full access to human medical technology, agricultural techniques, and educational resources. She offered to help rebuild the Dominion worlds that had been damaged during the war. She offered to share the human knowledge of art, music, and literature that had so fascinated Dominion crews. "We don't want your surrender," President Campbell explained during the final ceremony. "We want your friendship. We want to work together to make sure this kind of war never happens again anywhere in the galaxy." "But we invaded your worlds," Zexthrall protested. "We killed your people. We destroyed your colonies. How can you forgive us?" President Campbell was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Because hatred only creates more hatred. If we punish you now, your children will grow up wanting revenge against our children. If we help you now, maybe their children can grow up together as friends. Zex Thrall returned to his homeworld as a hero. The Dominion people celebrated his return and praised him for bringing peace and human alliance. There were parades and ceremonies. Politicians gave speeches about his courage and wisdom. Young officers studied his tactics and asked him to tell stories about the famous battles he had won. But in the quiet moments between the celebrations, Zex Thrall could not escape the weight of what the war had really cost. He established a private memorial garden at his home, filled with holographic displays showing faces of the dead. Human faces and Dominion faces, all mixed together, all equally lost. He learned that Captain Jake Morrison, the human officer who had surrendered to him in the early days of the war, had died during the evacuation of Titan Colony. Morrison had stayed behind to help Dominion refugees escape when the colony's life support systems failed. He could have saved himself, but he chose to save others instead. Carol Peters, the human engineer who had thanked him for not killing her crew, had survived the war. She had been released during a prisoner exchange and had returned to Earth. But her brother and both her parents had died when Dominion forces attacked her home colony. She had lost everything, yet she had still found reasons to be grateful for small acts of mercy. The memorial tablets that General Mitchell had given him became Zex Thrall's most treasured possessions. He read every name, studied every face, learned every story. The Dominion soldiers who had died believing they were fighting for glory and conquest. The humans who had died defending their families and homes. Dr. Helen Brooks sent him a message 6 months after the war ended. She was working on a new hospital that would serve both human and Dominion colonies in the border regions. She asked if he would like to contribute to the project or visit when it was completed. "We're calling it the Hope Memorial Hospital," she wrote. "We named it after your sub-commander Velnara's daughter. I know she died in the Battle of Europa, but Velnara told me that little Hope always dreamed of becoming a doctor. We thought this would be a good way to honor her memory." Zex Thrall had to stop reading for several minutes. He had not known that Velnara had lost a child in the war. She had never mentioned it, had never asked for leave to grieve, had simply continued doing her duty while carrying that terrible loss inside her heart. The humans had learned about hope from other Dominion prisoners and had decided to name their hospital after a little girl they had never met. They were honoring the dreams of their enemies' children while building something to heal the wounds of war. In his final log entry before retiring from military service, Zex Thrall wrote the words that would define the rest of his life. "I have fought in 13 wars against 12 different species. I thought I understood what it meant to be a warrior. I thought strength came from the ability to destroy your enemies and take what you wanted from them. I was wrong about everything. The humans never wanted to defeat us. They wanted to save us from ourselves. Every battle we fought, they were trying to show us a better way to live. When we attacked them with hatred, they responded with kindness. When we tried to break their spirit, they offered to heal our wounds. When we treated them as enemies, they treated us as people who had lost their way. We fought the humans believing they were weak. We discovered too late that their strength was the very thing we mistook for weakness. They were strong enough to forgive their enemies, strong enough to help people who had hurt them, strong enough to choose love over revenge, even when revenge would have been easier. I will spend the rest of my life trying to learn what they tried to teach us. I will work to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of harm, to understand instead of conquer. It is the least I can do to honor the memory of all those who died because I was too proud and too blind to see the truth. The humans were never our enemies. They were our teachers, and we nearly destroyed the greatest gift the galaxy had ever offered us." Zex Thrall closed his personal log and walked out to his memorial garden. The holographic faces looked back at him in the fading evening light. So many lives lost. So much potential wasted, but also so much learned and so much hope for the future. Tomorrow he would begin his new life's work, traveling between worlds to tell the story of the war and its lessons. He would make sure that future generations understood what had really happened when the Dominion met humanity. He would make sure they knew that the greatest victories came not from winning battles, but from winning hearts. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning.